everybody, it's Eric Mitchell. It's To The Point. It is Thursday, June 4th. It's June 4th, crap, it's already June 4th. You know, the problem with being in quarantine for so dang long is I've forgotten what day it is, and I'm always shocked when I find out it's June and my kids have 1 week left of school. But it's June 4th. We're going to keep this interview. We're going to stay under an hour. We are respecting the Floyd family. The Floyd family memorial is at 11 a.m. today. But we have a really amazing guest on our show. If you tune into CNN, which you should, because you don't want to watch the other network, because, well, they're just slant everything to the way that they just make somebody look like he never messes up. We have CNN legal analyst. Yes. CNN, I know some of I'm waiting for the haters to come with your CNN comments. I'm waiting. I know you're there, so we have the. I'm so excited for this, just because I know we get the trolls. We have Richard Herman on the show with us today, and we're going to jump into some interesting topics. So let's welcome our guest to the show. Richard, how are you doing?
Hello. Good morning. Or good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and hopefully educate you and maybe entertain you a little.
I like entertainment. We definitely need entertainment in these days that we're in with everything going on. Definitely important during these times.
Well, I like how you put off this interview several days so that all the officers could be charged, so we'd have more to talk about. Because if we were going to do this Monday, we would have only had one. So now we have all four. So I appreciate that. That's good.
It's nice to have all four. Let's start with that. I mean, obviously, you've spent 19 years with CNN as a legal analyst.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing every week with CNN legal analysis. And it's my perspective. They don't tell me what to say. They don't give me a point of view. I'm a New York trial attorney, criminal defense attorney, and I give it as I see it. And I've been on Nancy Grace when she started. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff on CNN, and it's been a long ride, 19 years. Next year will be 20, so it's interesting. It's a lot of fun, but I'm not programmed, and I think that's why they like me. I just call it like I see it. And like I'm going to call this case, it's not an easy case. It's not a slam dunk. And people that are so excited and happy about they upped it to murder 2, and they indict they file complaints against the other officers, and everybody's all excited about that. Okay, but now it's not over. It's like Yogi Berra. It's over when it's over. It's not over yet, and there's many miles to go before we sleep in this particular case, really. And just look back at Rodney King and what happened there, and you had a video, and everybody said it's lights out, it's 100% conviction, slam dunk case, and it wasn't. So, people have to put their seatbelts on, and I guess today maybe is not the proper day to, bring a little reality to the situation, but it's just tragic, and it could have all been avoided. I mean, this is over allegedly a bad $20 bill. That's what this whole thing is over. And you don't usually have videos when crimes are committed. So as a prosecutor, that's a plus for you to have these videos and the different angle of the videos. And it's you look at it objectively, it's disgusting to see what went on there and the treatment of this man. And you just say, oh my God, this is horrible. And these officers, they got to pay for this, and it's horrible. And it was horrible. And it was horrible. And it was avoidable. But, we don't know all the facts and circumstances of what led to the restraint on the ground there at the end. And that's what I'm focusing on. Was he resisting arrest? Was he putting up a fight there? I couldn't see him putting up a fight from the video I saw. It looked like he was subdued. He was on the ground. He had the knee to his neck, and he was telling this guy, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the officer kept his knee there, apparently, and under Minneapolis code and rules and procedure for police conduct, a knee to the head is acceptable. I mean, they kind of trained that there. So this was a device that was used by police in the past, and the question is, 9 minutes of that, or just about 9 minutes, was that excessive? And did that cause his death? I mean, that's the That's the big question here. Did that cause his death? And you'll hear experts testify at trial on this, and you have the county medical examiner who says no, he died of a heart attack, not asphyxiation. Now you have the family's private pathologist, Michael Baden, who comes in, world renowned, and says, oh, yes, he died from asphyxiation. He died from a knee to the neck, which cut off his air supply. He died from a knee to the chest, which put pressure on his brain. And he died from a knee to the legs, which are now 3 officers involved. And that's his testimony. But, you go before a jury, and the jury will ultimately decide, and it's beyond a reasonable doubt. So if some jurors believe that he did not die from the knee to the neck, they're going to deliberate for a long time on this one. It's not going to be black and white, over and out. And I use black and white just to show you the difference here. It's a difficult. You would think it's not difficult, but from a legal perspective, all I'm saying, this case is not a slam dunk, and you need efficient investigation here. You need to get all these videos lined up, and you need to line up your testimony of eyewitnesses that were there, and then you got 4 police officers charged. People usually, or predominantly in the United States, do not convict police officers. There's just an admiration from them, even when they act outrageous, which I would say this case qualifies for that. To convict a police officer is very difficult. There's a blue wall of silence. So police officers are not going to give up or testify against other police officers. There is the feeling by jurors that why should a police officer be punished for doing their job? And it's tough. And then you have the United States Supreme Court, which directs the juries in these cases to consider the state of mind of the police officer. So under those circumstances, put yourself in the police officer's mind. What was he thinking? Did he fear? Did he fear for his safety? Did he fear for his life? Did he fear for his other officers? I mean, those are the jury instructions that come out in a case like this. So it's all I'm trying to say to you is we'll discuss second-degree murder and first-degree murder and third-degree murder and manslaughter. I'll get into that with you in a little while.
Yeah.
But I know I've been talking a lot, so please jump in. But I just wanted to get that overview out there.
I was taking notes, just so you know. I was very into that. That's the most in-depth that we've heard. I mean, it's been hard really to hear a lot of legal analysis on this case due to the fact that we have had these peaceful protests that have also included rioters and looters and a bunch of other. It's just been a circus this week, and I know the number one question has been, and I know you mentioned Nancy Grace a minute ago. She was the first one that I saw publicly calling for why aren't these charges being brought up? Which does bring up interesting murder 1, murder 2, murder 3. I mean, I obviously understand how the penal code works, but here's one thing that I have for you. Doing some digging and looking into this particular police department, and I look at other police departments also around the country. The officer, number 1, that was first arrested had over 12 use of force cases against him, as has the other officer. I can't remember his name, but the 2 officers primarily doing it had excessive force cases that seem to be waived. There's a big difference. And also, you mentioned the knee to the back. We had a retired NYPD detective on the show just last week, and we discussed this maneuver because I was taught the chokehold when I was in the Sacramento Sheriff's Academy. I know that those type of techniques, they have to be done they're basically done when your life is in jeopardy, right? They're last case maneuvers because they're so scary, because you're cutting off the circulation of blood to someone's brain. That's not good. They're not going to sleep because that's natural. This isn't WWE. My thing is how and why did it take so long with all the multiple camera angles? Did it take so long for these 3 other officers to be arrested? It just blows my mind that they did it. And then second, on top of it, because I want to jump into this, How do they all, because one of them had their knee on the back, not the other ones, they were holding them down. And I'm not justifying this by any means. Anybody watching, hear my voice. I think all four of them are absolutely 100% at fault. I'm not saying they weren't, they're all willing participants, just like the police chief has said in Minneapolis. But why did it take so long for the other three when it was clear that they were there and they were willfully part of it and multiple camera angles?
And that's why they're charged with aiding and abetting. And those are the charges against them: aiding and abetting the commission of a second-degree murder case, felony murder, and a second-degree manslaughter case. If you help, assist, or counsel, or facilitate the commission of a crime, you are an aider and abetter. And if the crime is committed and voted guilty, you are guilty for that crime. So all of these officers are facing the same maximum 40 years incarceration if the second-degree murder conviction holds. So they're all, first offenders, and they probably would not get 40 years each, but that's the maximum that they're facing. And you're right. I mean, if the prosecutor is going to stand up and put a clock up there and then start it and let 9 minutes go by and then tell the jury that's how long they were, cutting off his oxygen and his blood supply, and he was just laying there because it does not look like he's resisting at that point. And we have these cases, and I always say this: when an officer gives you a command, no matter how outrageous that command is, that order is, you must follow it. If it's outrageous and it's improper, you come to me afterwards. We'll go after that police officer. We'll light him up. We'll do all kinds of things. But in the moment, when you are directed by law enforcement, a police officer, to do something, it's not up for discussion. It's not up to negotiation. Yeah. It's not up for, I think you're wrong. Yeah. No, you must do it. And if you resist arrest, nothing good is going to happen. Nothing. Because these police officers get up in the morning and they have families and they want to come home to those families at night. And they don't want to get killed during the course of the day.
I'm glad you said that just real fast. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's that I've heard this repeatedly on other networks about the officer wants to go home at night. I know that feeling as being a service member for our country. Our goal is to want to go home, right? We don't want to come home in a box. I understand the officer fight or flight mentality. In this particular case, and we haven't jumped in to the other one where officers haven't been arrested in Louisville. We'll get to that one in a second, because that one's still hot on my mind. Because Breonna Taylor was murdered, 40 plus gunshots on a wrongful door kick-in that wasn't even involving her, and she was murdered. Those officers still haven't been charged, nor have they been arrested. But for George Floyd, the footage I saw this weekend featured the door of the squad car open. Clearly, something is going on that's causing the SUV to shake. Now, I own an SUV. You got to do a lot to make an SUV shake. It's not like you're putting your groceries into it. There's two officers standing there, clearly beating. In my eyes, I'll guess it's beating a man, because that's the only reason the car is moving like there's a tiger in there. Beating this handcuffed man, where then suddenly he comes back out and he's on the ground. All the footage, what I don't get is why this has almost been shrugged off it took 5 days from the time that the event occurred for the officer caught directly on film that we all identified to be arrested. He clearly has rage issues. He's beating a guy who's in handcuffs, which we all know is like the ultimate no-no. He wasn't resisting arrest. He wasn't we've seen the toxicology reports. Nothing comes back that he was on PCP, meth, or anything that I've heard excuses used before, that they were under the influence or whatever. He's being beaten. Now, how do you take that? How does a jury come back and go, maybe he was defending himself? Is there really... can a jury... Obviously, 12 rocks in a box could do just about anything they want, but do you see a jury actually going, holy crap, he was beating this dude? I don't know. Yeah, where do you take that?
And right, I don't know what was going on in the car. And once he's in the car, I don't know why the door's not closed and they're on the way to the precinct. I don't know why they stayed around. He's in the car. Now, I think if the case goes to trial, I think one of these, or two of these, or all four of these police officers are going to have to testify, and they're going to have to tell the jury that he was resisting arrest and that he was bad mouthing them and he was cursing at them. And I don't know if this is true. I'm just saying that they're going to have to come up with some plausible explanation for subduing him the way they did. And the only one that comes to mind is that he's resisting. And I read some stories that he was claustrophobic and he was telling them, I don't want to be confined in a confined place. And I don't know if that's true, or we don't know anything that's true. The facts of this case are when the trial starts. Yeah. Then we know what the facts are. But right now, we only know what we've seen, and we're hearing a lot of different versions of what's going on here. And it's horrible. And I'm not trying to spin this. It's tragic. It's horrible, and it should never have happened. It's a big man. He's over 6 feet tall. They said he was 220, 230. Bigger than all the police officers there, and they were having a problem with him, and there should not have been a problem. And I watched him get out of the car and walk to the side of the street, and he was walking nicely, and he sat down there. Then they stood him up, and then they walked him to the car, and then I guess he tripped on the sidewalk, and that's why he fell. But you're right. He was in that car. He was in the car. How was the door not closed, and they're on the way to the precinct? I've got a problem with that. Yeah. But and the car was shaking, so they were not shaking hands with him when he was in there. I think we can conclude that. Yeah. And then on the ground, like that 9-minute span, 8+ minutes, applying pressure to this man. He's saying, "I can't breathe." Eric Garner in New York. Okay, he was resisting arrest. He was resisting arrest, and they were trying to subdue him and take him down. Here, the man is already on the floor. He's not moving. Yeah. He's not doing anything. And it's going to be very upsetting for a lot of the jurors. But, since 2005, there's been 100 cases where police officers have been charged with excessive force murder. 100. 35 have been convicted. The rest have either been acquitted, or the charges have been dropped, or nothing. So these statistics are out there. Compare that to a civilian ratio where the conviction rate's about 90%.
Jesus.
State and federal average. You're going to trial in a criminal case, you're looking at about 90% conviction rate, higher in the federal courts. So, it's a hill they're going to have to climb, because you're going to have stealth jurors also. You're going to have jurors that are going to come in and say, "Oh, I can judge this case. I don't come in here with any preconceived ideas." But who knows? There may be racist jurors getting on that jury. There may be, you just don't know. Yeah. And it's just, again, it's a horrible, horrible case. And to prove the second-degree murder, which they bumped up, and again, they did that to try to get the 40-year maximum.
Oh, that makes sense. I was wondering. I was going to ask you why did they move it up? Because I was looking up. Obviously, each state has different case law. I mean, murder one is basically cut and dry across the country. I mean, right. each one has. I mean, I was shocked that murder two only. I think the max sentence they could get if found guilty on all charges is 58 years, which kind of blew my mind that's it for a life. Obviously, I probably watched way too much TV, and I should save the legal stuff for guys like you. That's probably like when I watch military movies, and I'm like, do you guys ever reload your magazines? It's amazing you have bottomless weapons. I wish I had bottomless weapons. Endless shots, like Heat. The only movie that ever they reload in is Heat, the movie Heat. Best De Niro movie, completely different. But I mean, so let's talk about that. And then I have one more thing for you, because I see that beautiful piece of paper behind your head being the Constitution. And we've heard a lot about that this week. So I do want to, I do have a question that came in from a good friend of mine that he does want to hear your feedback on. But I do want to talk about, so what is murder two, and how difficult will it be for the prosecution to get murder two?
Okay, murder two, you have to prove that either the officer intentionally killed the victim, or that the officer's conduct was taking place during the commission of another felony. And here they're going to argue that that felony is felony assault. So they're going to say, not only did he take the life of the gentleman, but that they also feloniously assaulted him. And when you do that, It's typically called felony murder. And that's what's required in Minnesota for a second-degree murder conviction. It's like if you go with some people and you rob a bank, and during the course of that bank robbery, a teller dies, you get charged with felony murder. You get charged with the felony of robbery, and you get charged with felony murder because a death occurred during the commission of a felony. And so that's why they bumped it. 9 minutes, that's going to give you the felony assault. So they have the elements to prove it, and the 9 minutes are going to be egregious, and it's going to be, very painful for the people to sit in that courtroom, and at least 2 times, I guarantee you, the prosecutor will let 9 minutes go without saying a sound, just to give the jury an idea. But the fact that he committed a felony during the course and commission of what they're claiming, the homicide, the murder, that's it. That's all that's required to get a felony murder conviction. And, I think that I think the elements are there for it. They're looking to get, the prison sentence. That's what they're looking for. Murder 1, first-degree murder. Each state is a little different on first-degree murder. For instance, New York, in order to get first-degree murder, you have to kill a police officer or a judge. Otherwise, you can't get first-degree murder. So some states are different like that. And in Minnesota, in order to charge someone with first-degree murder, you have to go to a grand jury first. So the grand jury has to hear the case and then issue a true bill. And that's no guarantee that would happen for first-degree murder. And then you have to prove that the police officer intended. This was an intentional, he thought about it, he planned it out, and he wanted to kill this man. Now, I don't think you have those elements there. I don't think any of these police officers got up that day and said, okay, we're going to look out for this guy, George, and we're going to kill him. So you can't get that. You're not going to be successful on a murder 1. And they have to stop with that.
Yeah.
Murder 2, they have a shot at. Murder 3, acting with such indifference and such reckless behavior as to reasonably assume that the behavior that you're doing will lead to serious bodily harm or death. That's what they have to prove. That's murder 3. In Minnesota, there's a few little quirks on the murder 3. I've read some articles to say procedurally it may not be proper. I'm not sure about that. That was the initial charge, murder 3. It's still a charge. It still remains. But the prosecution's looking for that second-degree murder. They're going to look to prove that and tie in all the accomplices on that who helped, aided, assisted, stood around, put their knee on his back, put their knee on the legs, didn't break it up, and that's what's going to convict everybody. So if that top charge gets a conviction, everybody's going to fall on that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that. So before you go, I want to ask you this. All week long, we've been talking about constitutional rights, especially when it comes to protest. And it's embarrassing that as a country, we have to go on and say there's a big difference between supporting protesters and not supporting rioters or looters, right? There's clearly a difference there that some people who hide in bunkers seem to not understand that difference. Now, we watched the other day, on Monday, when we watch peaceful protesters, there's beyond enough video footage to completely prove what I'm saying is absolutely, without a doubt, true, including the company including CNN, who had probably the best vantage point of both the church and where the protesters were. But all the networks covered it. The President of the United States ordered a bar to fire upon peaceful protesters, and then to clear the park. You've seen his administration walk across, and I'm holding up, because just yesterday I'm holding it up so everybody sees my Bible, but I've actually read this and I can quote from it, and this isn't a Bible, but it's James Mattis, so it's almost as equal. Love that man. And I bring up the Constitution because General Mattis brought this up yesterday in his release where he gave his opinion, joining over 10 decorated